Hi, I am Katie Johnson. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Stoughton, Wisconsin. You are probably watching me on my Facebook page because I go live every Monday at 1 o'clock. You might be catching me on YouTube because I'm going to double post this one because I'm not live today because I have jury duty this week. So those of you who are tuning in at 1 o'clock to try to catch me live, I'm actually sitting in a room waiting to find out if my number is called to sit on a jury. However, I have another idea to share with you today about how to use up some of your designer papers. So let me turn my camera down and we'll take a look. If you're just catching me for the first time today, this is the card that we made last time, and I will put a link in the comments to so that you can see how I made this card, but we were focusing on some current designer paper. Now today we're just going to be using up some scraps of designer paper, and I have a really awesome way to really highlight that designer paper. What I'm holding in my hand is a dollar store album. It's one of those little photo albums that you'd stick in your purse or carry around with you in a backpack, and it literally is $1 at the dollar store. And it's just got all these little plastic sleeves that you can stick a 4x6 photo in, but it's real handy for showing off card samples. I have another one. For those of you who follow my lives, I have another one that I use for layouts. This one is for ideas for using designer paper. For example, you can take strips, long strips of designer paper scraps. Give me a thumbs up if you happen to have any of those laying around because, right, we all do. So I had done this one, a while back. I'll see if I can find the link to this one and I'll put it in the comments below. But this one, you just take scraps that do not have parallel sides. This is a scrap with sides that are parallel. But if you take a wider strip and then kind of cut it at an angle, you can get these pieces that kind of, you can layer them in wonky patterns and make all kinds of fun designs. Here's another one that I did, and this one is definitely from a live last fall because it was using some beautiful foiled papers that we had. And if you put all of these points so that they all seem to come from the same place, you can get this starburst or sunray pattern. So that was one that I did as a live, and I think this was part of the same video. Again, I will find the link to this and I will post this. Here is one more sample of something that you can do with little scraps. This one is called a herringbone pattern. For the herringbone pattern, the scraps are all butted up right next to each other. You wouldn't have to. For this sunray pattern, again, I scooted these pieces of paper so they were right up next to each other. You wouldn't have to. And for this scrappy design that I showed you in the beginning, you could put those scraps of paper right up next to each other. I didn't. On this one, I pulled them apart so that you could see that lovely black paper that they're layered on, or you could put them on any coordinating color of cardstock. Today, what I want to show you is something really cool that you can do with that space. So here's a piece cut down to the size to be a card front. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And I am going to use straight strips, ones that have parallel sides to them. When you lay two scraps next to each other like that, you can pick a lovely coordinating color and just let the color show through, or you can fill that space with something. One of the things that you could fill it with is embossing powder. Here's the current catalog. Stampin' Up! Sells several different embossing powders, so we have silver and copper and gold. I'm not going to use that today. Because this is being filmed, because I can edit it, I'm going to use a product that I wouldn't normally use on a live. Flip over to my page with the bling. There's this product right here that you haven't actually heard me talk about much or show samples with. This is gilding powder. It's gold leafing. And all this needs is something sticky to hold it in place. You could use glue. You could use a product, the one that Stampin' Up! Suggests that you use. I'm flipping over to the adhesives page. You can see that Stampin' Up! Carries a whole variety of different types of adhesives. The one that Stampin' Up! Suggests and recommends for using that gilding and putting the gilding on is heat and stick powder. Now the reason that they suggest the heat and stick powder is because this is something that can be stamped. In other words, you would stamp your image in a sticky glue like Versamark and then sprinkle this heat and stick powder on and then follow the directions and it would become sticky and hold that gold leafing on. Point being that this can conform to whatever shape your stamped image is. Well, I don't need that today. All I need is something that's going to fill in the spaces between the paper. So I'm going to use the adhesive sheets, and it's going to be even easier. So this is the package of the adhesive sheets. You can see they come quite long, so they could be used for scrapbooking if you wanted. Come in a 6 by 12 sheet, but the cool thing is the release paper, because this is double sticky sheets, the release paper is solid on one side, but the release paper actually has some scoring in it on the other side, which makes it a little bit easier when you're pulling off small pieces of it. All right, let's see how this is going to work. I put the release paper back on. This will make it very easy for cutting. I think you can tell that that release paper is translucent enough that I can kind of see through it, so I know exactly where to cut along the edge. And I'll trim this up later, so if I'm not getting it perfect, that's not a problem. This is useful enough that I'm going to save this scrap on the end because I can use it for small die cuts. This is going to go back in my container. I'm going to cut that off just to make for easy storage. But I'm going to even save this little piece because I can use that for small die cuts. All right, this was the release paper, which I no longer need. This is the scrap paper that I'm using, and the back side is actually color coordinated, so I'm probably going to end up using both sides on this. I'm cutting this into some random pieces, some of which have 90-degree corners on them, and some of which have an angle, and I'm trying to be careful to not have the angle be the same on all of them. So a steep angle, a gentler angle, a trapezoid. We'll try to do all different sizes and shapes. And then we're just going to start laying them on. So there really is no wrong way to do this. You're just using up scraps and finding places to put them. If you've got a couple of spots that you think are a little more open than what you want, you can go ahead and trim down something else to try to fit in that space. But it probably isn't needed because we're going to fill that with that gold leafing. Then you want to take it on the back side and trim off the edges. What I've just created then is a haphazard pattern, sort of a stained glass window look. Right now, what you see showing through is the white color of the cardstock it's mounted on, and it's sticky because I used that adhesive sheet. So we are going to put the gold leafing into those spaces. I have a box, and I'll tell you why I have the box. The gold leafing comes in a jar, and it has no weight to it at all. It's fluffy. It makes a mess. So I keep it in this box because that way I can kind of contain the mess a little bit on my workspace. Warning, when you do this, you want to take that lid off really carefully and slowly so it doesn't create air currents. And then the other thing that you're going to see, slowly moving it aside, I keep a scrap sheet of white paper in here, again, just to help keep down the air currents. Oh gosh, I see. I was watching underneath it what happened when I shook it off that piece of paper. So this is how it's going to come from Stampin' Up. It's going to come in a jar, and you're going to find that once you take some out of the jar and then you try to put the extras back in, you can't get it all back in because they pack it in there in the factory, and then when it comes out, it just is this fluffy, fluffy stuff that has absolutely no weight to it. Some of it comes out in big pieces, and as you use it, it breaks up and it comes out in littler pieces. You can see a little bit of the gold maybe on my fingers there. You can see a little bit of gold on my fingers. But what we're going to do is put it into the spaces on my project piece that has the adhesive. Another point on working with this, I'm not going to take this stuff out and put it on my paper. Instead, I'm going to bring my paper into this space, and literally I can just put it down, oops, put it down on the bottom, got a few air currents down there, and smush this gold leafing all over the where the adhesive is showing. I'm just going to press it into all those places where I can feel that there's the adhesive, and then I will take it out and we will play with it. Here, you can see how these, I mean, literally leaves, like leaves of paper. See how they're all stacked right next to each other, all flat? That's how it comes packed in the jar. And then, of course, once you take it out, they start to fall apart. Here's some more big clumpies. This is all useful. It's just clumped together to begin with. But yeah, I don't want to keep it in my original jar anymore. Okay, so what I'm doing here, and it's hard to see because it's in the box, but I'll pull it out and you'll see the effect in just a minute, is I'm just pressing my finger to put that gold leafing down into where the adhesive is. This is going to be so pretty, guys. When it comes out, it's going to be so pretty. Yes, messy, but this is fun. Is this a kid project? Ooh, I don't know. You have to decide on your kids and how messy they are. All right, now I'm going to kind of scrape this stuff off, put the extras back in. This is a lifetime supply here too. Just saying, lifetime supply. And you can't see it, but look how pretty this is. You can start to see all that sparkle showing through in the spaces. And of course, it's different than what you would get with embossing powder, because with embossing powder, it tends to be more level. The reflective surfaces tend to all kind of shine the same direction. But this, because of the gold leafing, oh gosh, it's going to catch the light from so many different angles. Try and get the most off my hands that I can. I'm just pulling in a random small sheet of paper, and I'm just going to use that to kind of scrape over the surface. Before I put this away, I'm going to bring this is just a regular sheet of typing paper. I'm just laying this in the box, and the purpose of that is just to catch the air currents, to keep the stuff down for the next time I take the lid off the box. So just look at that. Isn't that pretty? And of course, you can pick any colors to go with it. This was just I pulled out something that had some yellows in it because I thought that would accent the yellows from the gold leafing. I am going to take my bone folder and just go back and make sure that I've pressed this all in very firmly. But the adhesive sheet is what's going to hold this gold leafing in place. So now I have a piece ready to go to make a card. To finish off the front of the card, I've punched myself some large and small daisies. This is a new punch that I haven't had a chance to play with yet, so I'm kind of excited to play with it. It's called the Symmetrical Stems Border Punch, and it's actually part of a bundle. I didn't buy that stamp set, but I did buy the punch. Thought this was just a quick and easy thing to have in my stamp room to get some small little pieces of, well, let me show you how this works, because this is kind of fun. So it is a border punch. I'm going to punch in the middle of this piece of paper, and I get two green leaf stems. This is why I bought it. I just wanted something that was quick and easy to make some punched greenery, some punched foliage, as opposed to pulling out my die cuts. But look how this thing is supposed to work. So the way a border punch works is you're supposed to be able to repeat the pattern. They have it printed on the base. Once you've punched those holes, you're supposed to line up the punched image that you have already created with that silver image that you see printed on the surface. I'm holding it up so that I can see that it's lined up, and now I'm tipping it so that you can see that it's lined up. And now I've punched it again, and it just repeats the pattern. So for a 12 by 12 scrapbook sheet, you could have a whole long row of these punched leaves, symmetrical, stem to stem, going up and down the page or across the base of the page, because this border punch lets you do it. And of course, it's got this little ridge right here. See that little raised area? So you can always, each time you put it back in, you're going to have it go the same depth into the punch. Let me do one more here and show you. And again, I'm holding it so that it's viewable for me to line up. But now I'll tip it so that you can see the hole I've already punched is lined up so that I can see the image that's printed on that sheet through the hole. and then it just repeats that pattern. So the whole pattern is all perfectly spaced, same distance from the edge of the paper. Yeah, border punches are fun. That's not why I bought it. I wanted to be able to do a whole bunch of quick and easy little pieces of foliage, and I actually want a couple more in another color here too. The other thing you can do is you can look from the bottom. So from the bottom, I'm just checking to make sure that I've got my foliage right up next to the edge, and then I can squeeze one more in here. So the symmetrical stems border punch, that is kind of fun. And then of course I use these all the time, the big and little daisy punches. Didn't this turn out pretty? Just look at how the light reflects off of that. I'm going to mount this on a piece of basic gray. I've got my flowers and my leaf stems ready to go, but I also want to figure out how I'm going to do the sentiment. Now, I've prepared some pieces. So here it is. This is the die set that I used. It was called Painted Labels. And I'm cutting out this, I cut out this swirled piece right here to use. I keep bringing these back and forth and playing with them. I can't decide whether I like the Calypso Coral or the Crushed Curry on here. They both look good. But I'm going to layer some flowers on, so let's see which ones look better with the flowers. This is the Fine Art ribbon, and look at this. There's more gold. Isn't that cool? Look at that gold sparkle in there. This is a perfect accent to use with the gold from the gold leafing. And now that I see that, I think I'm going to like this one better. I do need something in here, so I'm going to put my sentiment in the middle of this piece. So here's the sentiment set that I chose. I think I'm going to use this happy birthday, and I want to put it in the middle of this circle. I'm going to put it on white. Let me show you a little trick. This is the die that I used to die cut the piece. I want to make sure I've got a circle the right size to fit in here. I keep this in my case with the dies, so this will slip right back into the back side of my Painted Labels die case, so that I can use this in future times to know what the right size circle is to cut for here. Here's a 1 3/4 inch hole. It fits nicely. Here's a 2-inch hole, and in case I was worried or wondered what that 2-inch hole would look like, I can see on my die cut piece that the stitching is showing through. The 2-inch hole is too big to fit on this die cut piece. So this is just a reminder for me for future times that the 1 3/4 inch circle is the right size circle to use for layering on here. The other thing I can do with this piece is I can put it over my sentiment, because the size of the images that you see on the front of the case, that is the size of the stamp. I can put it on the back and see that the stamp fits nicely, but I can also just layer it on the front side of the stamp case and see what fits. I kind of sped you through the layering of all these little punched leaves and the double layering of the daisies. This is just going to go off to the side. It's going to be a very pretty element. I want it set up a little bit, so I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of that piece. I've also put dimensionals on the back of this flower, because I'm going to layer this one up a little bit. It's going to kind of be attached right there. But I am going to raise this up, and then I do want to put this really pretty sparkly ribbon behind it, that gold woven ribbon. I want this to stay and not slip. Taking a little piece of regular Scotch tape, the single-sided tape, because this doesn't have to, this is not functioning to hold my wreath on. This is just functioning to hold the ribbon on the paper in position so that I can get the wreath on. I did punch myself a couple of small circles to put in the middle of the daisies. And for just a little bit of added sparkle, I'm going to come back and throw a couple of rhinestones on. This wreath die, part of the painted labels dies, one of my favorite dies. I love the elegance of the look you get with that. These daisies, I use those all the time. And honestly, this was my first time playing with this symmetrical, or what was it, in symmetry border punch. I love how quick and easy it is to make a couple of pieces of foliage to throw on a pattern. Now, this is that art, what is it called? Fine art ribbon with that metallic thread in it. Very cool. Love the look of the natural look with the sparkle in it. And then the couple of tricks I showed you for using up designer paper, cutting them into little pieces, and using this adhesive sheets. They just call them adhesive sheets to make a backing that's sticky, so easy to put that gilding on. And then I had that other trick about remember to punch yourself a hole and just keep the hole, because it's easy to put that hole over the box and decide whether or not a stamp fits in it. And then you can also put that hole over a die cut piece to see whether it works on the layering piece that you're going to use for your project. So give me a thumbs up, please, if you found this to be useful information. If you would like to see more projects like this, then make sure that you either, like my Facebook page or subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can see more things like this. Tune in next Monday. Next Monday, we'll have another live with another project. And now go check out your designer papers and start playing. Have an incredible week. We'll see you next time. Bye.